One day, I saw my fiancée, who was soon to be married, walking arm in arm with some guy I didn't recognize. After a night shift, I was driving to pick her up. This city, on the cusp of Christmas, was brightly decorated and the faces of the people bustling about were cheerful. From inside the car, even my heart, against my usual demeanor, felt festive. I'm Jim. Working in real estate, I always pick her up from her job on my day off, Wednesday. Her name is Anna. We met through a colleague, Brandon, and have been dating for 3.5 years. Anna is a nurse. Never having been hospitalized myself, my only knowledge of what a night shift nurse does comes from the stories Anna tells me. But seeing the sheer exhaustion on her face as she gets into the car, I understand it's no easy job. Today, she looks especially spent. Rough day. Well, you look beat, I say. Can you tell by my face? Oh, I hate that. Saying this, Anna bashfully covered her face with her hands. Her gesture was so endearing, I just wanted to hug her right then and there. But I'm driving. Must resist. You seem really sleepy. Maybe we should postpone the venue viewing for another time. We had plans to go check out a wedding venue. Jess, we are getting married. We've introduced each other to our families and are in the midst of deciding on the venue and the date. Let's go since we're all here. I'm fine, really. Plus, I've been looking forward to today for so long. As she said this, Anna's eyes were sparkling. Next, we're headed to a small chapel on the outskirts of town. It was the first place Anna had suggested. Choosing a humble venue over a fancy hotel really shows her modest and gracious character. It was a much better place than I imagined. On the way back from the chapel, looking at the brochure, Anna said excitedly, "Should we just decide on that place? I think I want to check out a few more places. Anyway, I want to get married as soon as possible," I said, and Anna nodded happily. Having the person I love by my side, smiling at me. I can't imagine anything happier than this. I will definitely make her happy. That's a promise I made to myself. But suddenly, those happy days came to an abrupt end. It happened one day. Working overtime, I noticed my coworker, Brandon, lingering around me, looking like he wanted to say something. Come to think of it, Brandon has been acting strange since this morning. I figured he might have a stomach ache or something, so I just kept working. Couldn't you just ask what's wrong? Impatient, Brandon finally approached me. What's up? You need something? No, it's hard to say here. Reluctantly, I let Brandon drag me to our usual tavern. After taking a sip of the draft beer that had been served, I turned to Brandon. So, what is it you wanted to tell me? Well, you see, Brandon mumbled, hesitating. I let out a big sigh. If you just wanted to drink, you should have said so from the start. It's not that. Just calm down and listen, all right? Typically when Brandon starts like this, it's usually some trivial story. About how the lady at the office greeted us with a smile, or about the boss walking with a young woman. Did you catch the branch manager in an affair? I said, browsing the menu. That's it. Brandon nearly stood up as he pointed at me. I couldn't care less about the branch manager's flings, to be honest. It's not the branch manager I saw, it's... As I shifted my gaze from the menu to Brandon's face, he was looking at me with a strangely serious expression. A bad feeling started to creep over me. No way, I thought. Jim, I heard you're about to get married, and I didn't want to stir the pot, but you're my colleague and a good friend. I was the one who introduced you to Anna, my friend from college days, so I have to tell you. My heart started racing. With my palms starting to sweat, I waited for Brandon to continue. I saw it, man, Anna, walking arm in arm with another guy. I felt the blood drain from my face. This is a sick joke if it's meant to be one. It's no joke. At first, I thought I was seeing things, but look at this. Brandon showed me a picture on his phone. It was taken from behind, but it was definitely Anna. She was wearing the turquoise blue scarf I gave her last Christmas, walking arm in arm with a man, as if they were supporting each other. What does this mean? I tried to think rationally about the situation, but my mind wouldn't work because of the shock. It just can't be. Anna wouldn't do something like this. Betray me like this. After parting ways with Brandon, I immediately called Anna and told her, I'm coming over now. Then, I hopped into a cab and headed to Anna's place. When I rang the doorbell, Anna quickly unlocked the door and greeted me. What's up? You surprised me, coming over all of a sudden. She must have been getting ready for bed. Her hair was still damp and loosely tied up, with a cardigan thrown over her nightwear. As I stepped into the room, I began without turning to face her. Brandon says, he saw you walking arm in arm with some guy I don't know. The air suddenly tensed up. Despite the heating being on, it felt like the temperature in the room was dropping fast. Anna remained silent. Brandon's just mixed up, right? My voice trembled pathetically. Anna was still quiet. The only sound in the room was the irritating tick of the alarm clock by the bed. And then, it's not a mix-up, she said in a faint, thin voice. An uncomfortable silence spread once again. Unable to bear the quiet, I laughed it off. You guys are pulling my leg, aren't you? Cut it out. I'm really bad with this kind of prank. As I sat down on the couch, Anna sat a little distance away. Listen, I've decided to break up with you and start seeing him. I was going to tell you soon, but it slipped out now. Anna's face was serious. To me, it seemed like something from another world, and I couldn't help but burst into laughter. Laughing hysterically as if I'd lost my mind, Anna continued. I'm going to date him. Him? Who is he? He works at a nightclub. A nightclub? The guy in the photo looked pale, with delicate features, almost unhealthy. Now that she mentioned it, he did look the part. What about getting married? I never planned on that from the start. Even after introducing you to my parents, that was all you're doing. You've betrayed me. I was never serious. It was just a game. An adult should understand that, right? For the first time in my life, I felt the urge to hit someone. This strange laughter had vanished, and my heart was rapidly filling with despair and intense anger. Then, I hurled every curse and insult I could think of at Anna. I was surprised at myself for being able to come up with such filthy words. Get out. I don't even want to see your face anymore. With those words, a single tear trailed down Anna's cheek. It felt so phony. Betraying me and running off with someone else. I grabbed the photo frame that caught my eye. Displayed was a selfie of us at the Santa Monica beach. That's when I popped the question. She was so happy then. I violently threw the photo frame into the trash and left Anna's room. That was the end of our story. From then on, I threw myself into work, trying not to think of Anna. Once I started thinking about it, I couldn't stop. I was driven by a desire to erase it all. Drowning in work as if to inflict pain on myself, with a deeply wounded heart. Nightly, I drowned my sorrows in booze with Brandon and the juniors, forcing myself to sleep. I'd become dependent on alcohol to sleep. But it was my junior, Lucy, who supported me. She worried about how gaunt I was getting and gave me a thermos of warm soup. Her kindness thawed the ice in my veins, warming me through. Eventually, Lucy and I started dating. Brandon, who had a thing for her, grumbled a bit, but he genuinely congratulated me, wishing me happiness as I sought it anew. He was worried about me too, considering I'd been on the brink of self-destruction. 2 years after splitting with Anna, Lucy and I got hitched. Betrayal from someone I loved with all my heart. It shattered my soul to pieces, to the point I thought I couldn't stand up again. But thanks to Lucy, I've been able to open up my heart to love once more. I overcame it because she was there. Now, I want to be there for her. I was determined to make Lucy happy for the rest of our lives. A year later, this season of Christmas returns to our town again. The familiar scenery, now lit up with Christmas lights, made my heart skip a beat. No matter the age, Christmas always brings that excitement. I looked around, scanning the shop windows for the perfect find. Today, I was on the hunt for Lucy's Christmas gift. Gloves were last year's gift, and jewelry just lacks originality. Maybe splurging on an electric bike would do the trick. As I pondered, a familiar profile caught my eye. It was Anna. She was wearing the turquoise blue scarf I gave her, pushing a wheelchair. The man in the wheelchair must be the guy from that photo. He works at a nightclub, doesn't he? I thought he'd be out of the picture soon enough, but they're still together, huh? A dark flame began to burn in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't contain my hatred and stepped forward to confront them. "Hey there," startled by my sudden appearance, and his eyes widened. "Jim, still using that scarf, I see." "Yeah, well," my gaze fell on the man in the wheelchair. The guy, with his black beanie, didn't so much as glance our way, just kept looking straight ahead. I felt a surge of arrogance at his demeanor and couldn't help but throw a sarcastic jab. "Had an accident. That's what you get for stealing someone's girlfriend. Serves you right." I admit, it was a mean thing to say. But the guy said nothing back. As I was about to yell at him, and it cut in. "We're in a hurry," and with that, she pushed the wheelchair past me. I watched them go, feeling oddly satisfied. I'd always wanted to give that guy a piece of my mind. After all that, he didn't have a comeback. It makes sense, though. He's the one in the wrong, so he couldn't say anything. At that moment, I felt no remorse, almost smug about their misfortune. Days later, I was on a business trip. This is where Anna's parents live. I've been here before to meet them, back when things were good. If I remember right, there's a decent diner behind the station. After wrapping up a meeting with a client, I decided to grab a bite to eat. As I walked down the main street, I saw familiar faces coming my way. They were supposed to be my in-laws, Anna's parents. Is this kind of coincidence even possible? No, they live around here, so it's not odd to see them shopping in town. Yet, there are two people who have nothing to do with me anymore. Should I just pretend I don't know them and pass by? As I was mulling it over, Anna's mom looked my way and our eyes met. My heart skipped a beat, and I quickly looked away. "Jim," despite my silent plea not to be noticed, Anna's mom called out my name. Her voice, which I hadn't heard in years, sounded weary. "It's been a while." "You look well, that's good." "Well, how could I be? How could I possibly be okay? Thanks to Lucy, I've picked myself up, but do you have any idea how much your daughter made me suffer?" Annoyed by her thoughtless words, I forced a smile and said, "So, Anna dumped me like trash and is living happily ever after with someone else who works at a night bar. Well, good for her." "What?" The two of them looked puzzled. "Don't tell me they didn't know about the guy's job." Yeah, I was shocked to learn that Anna had become such a player. Speaking of which, did that host guy get into an accident? Must be karma, what goes around comes around. I expected them to snap at me, but instead, they just looked at each other, confused. After a brief consultation, Anna's mom turned to me and said, "Did Anna actually tell you that?" "Yeah, she did. Didn't you know? We've known him since she was little. He's not. What? And his mom chose her words carefully, trying not to hurt me. And his mom told me this. The man in the wheelchair wasn't her enemy guy or anything. He was Anna's childhood friend. And also the one who saved her life. Anna was born with a heart condition and occasionally had attacks when she was a child. During her middle school years, she had a severe attack while walking home alone and collapsed on the side of the road. Thankfully, he came by and called an ambulance, which likely saved her from a worse fate. It was a road not many people traveled, so if he hadn't passed by, help might not have come in time. From then on, until they graduated middle school, he always made sure to walk her to and from school, always ready to assist if something happened. Due to all this, Anna and her parents couldn't thank him enough, feeling an immense sense of gratitude. His kindness also inspired Anna to want to save others, which led her to pursue nursing. But even hearing this, I couldn't accept it. Even if he was her lifesaver, it doesn't give him a reason to treat me so poorly and cause me such pain. I didn't sugarcoat it. I threw these words right at Anna's mom. After a brief hesitation and with a trembling voice, she replied, "He has, else." Afterward, I managed to get back to work, but her words stuck with me. else, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I had heard the name before. Once home, I opened my laptop and searched for information about the disease. It's a progressive disease where muscles stop working as you'd expect, making it difficult to speak clearly and swallow food. Eventually, the muscles needed for breathing weaken, and a ventilator becomes necessary to extend life. And once it starts, the symptoms never get better. I heard the front door open. Looks like Lucy got back from work. In a panic, I shut the laptop. "I'm home. Hey, what's wrong? You look pale." "It's nothing. I might have done something terrible." Even if I didn't know, to be so rude to someone suffering from such a terrible disease. I felt like I was being torn apart by intense regret. He didn't ignore me. He just couldn't turn to face me. I owe Anna, and her childhood friend, an apology. I'm gonna take a walk for a bit. With Lucy giving me a puzzled look, I grabbed my phone and left the house. My breath was white in the cold air. Before I knew it, it was already past the 20th of December. My hands were numb from the cold as I fumbled with my phone, trying to find Anna's number. This was the first time I was calling Anna since we broke up. Would she pick up? After a few short rings, I heard Anna's familiar voice. "Hello, it's me, Jim." That's all I could manage before we both fell silent. I still hadn't figured out how to apologize. The north wind was piercing my cheeks. A feeling of inadequacy overwhelmed me, squeezing my frozen chest tight. Anna was the first to break the silence. "You heard from my mom about him." "Yay, about that. I'm really sorry for what happened before. I don't expect forgiveness, but..." "No, it's me who should say. Actually, he's been wanting to see you. Can you meet him tomorrow?" "To see me?" I wasn't feeling up for it, to be honest. But I felt I had to. I was the one who said he deserved divine punishment. I need to apologize face to face. We agreed to meet at the coffee shop in front of the station the next afternoon and hung up. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop an hour earlier than the scheduled time. I couldn't settle down at home. I couldn't gauge Anna's feelings through the phone call the day before. Was she angry? Or was she sad? After about half an hour, the cafe's door opened, and I saw Anna coming. She was pushing the wheelchair just like she had been the other day. When she spotted me, she deftly changed the wheelchair's direction and headed straight towards me. I gave a slight nod and watched her approach. "You're pretty early, aren't you?" Anna said with a weary smile. That unchanged smile of hers made my old wounds ache. "It's been a while, so he is." He's Kevin, just like my mom told you. He is my childhood friend. He can't move or talk normally anymore." Anna spoke while wiping Kevin's hands with a wet wipe. I didn't know what to say and just stood there awkwardly watching. After carefully wiping his hands, Anna bowed deeply to me. "I'm really sorry about that time." I was terribly shaken, thinking that I should be the one apologizing, and I couldn't even respond. Ashamed, I cast my eyes downward. No matter how I try to explain it now, it won't change the fact that I betrayed you and hurt you, but I need you to hear this. And it continued. At that time, Kevin's illness had already progressed to the point where walking alone was difficult. Even if we thought to go for a walk for a change of scenery, during the bright hours when people were around, someone would laugh at his awkward gait or say something heartless. So it became our routine to walk together on less crowded streets late at night. Hearing this, I wished I could just disappear from the spot. The one who had said those heartless words, wasn't that me? I would take Kevin's arm and walk slowly, with me beside him. What Brandon saw was just that. Brandon did indeed see Anna. But she wasn't leaning on him out of dependence. It was to support Kevin. Then why? You could have just explained all this to me. And I looked down sadly when she heard this. The words that finally came out of my mouth were accusing Anna. No, that's not what I want to blame her for. I was disappointed in myself for not being able to express my feelings properly. Then, still looking down, Anna whispered, "Kevin's parents are gone, so I'm the one to support him." It struck me. Of course, that explains everything. She distanced herself from me to take care of Kevin. Why make up a lie about his job? That should have been obvious. Did you lie? For my sake. It's not your fault. I didn't want to burden you with this repayment. If you knew, you'd definitely say you wanted to shoulder it too. You're a very kind-hearted person. What is she saying? That's for my sake, isn't it? Just as Anna said, if I had known back then, I would have definitely decided to shoulder it with her. Knowing that, Anna did something that would make her be disliked. Anna, she gave up her own happiness for her benefactor. As I stood there dumbfounded by the harsh truth thrust upon me, Kevin let out a short cry. Anna listened carefully and began to speak a few words. I remembered seeing it back in high school during a health class. It was a way to communicate with people who couldn't speak, using mouth shapes. Anna used this method to understand what Kevin was trying to say. Kevin said, "I didn't know you were engaged. Dump me and let's start over. Silly, I've told him that I'll never leave him for the rest of my life." Kevin, unable to move his facial muscles, appeared expressionless, but his eyes seemed to carry a hint of sadness. Unaware of Anna's turmoil, that day I cursed her out in a fit of anger. "Is there anything I can do to help?" To my question, Anna shook her head gently with a small smile. "Live your life. Be happy." Under the table, I clenched my fist tightly. I felt so powerless that I wanted to punch myself in the face. I certainly loved Anna back then. If Anna is struggling, I want to support her somehow. If she has chosen her path, I want to walk beside her. But I swallowed my words and looked straight into Anna's eyes to say, "I respect your strength. I'll always be rooting for you, so please, find happiness, Anna." Anna nodded slowly, with the same gentle smile she had 3 years ago. She waved her hand slightly in front of her face before turning her back. As I watched her in a daze, Anna turned around as if remembering something and said to me, "Merry Christmas, though it's a bit early. We probably won't see each other again. But I hope you will be happy. May your chosen path be filled with light." I closed my eyes and prayed earnestly. When I got home, Lucy was decorating the Christmas tree. She was stretching to put a star-shaped ornament on top of the tree, taller than herself. "Welcome back. Hey, can you put this on for me?" I can't reach. I took the star from Lucy. I wish such brightness would shower upon Anna and Kevin. May darkness stay away, and only overflowing happiness embrace them. With that thought, I became so wistful that tears began to fall uncontrollably. Surprised by my sudden tears, Lucy looked into my face with concern. I hugged Lucy desperately and told her I loved her over and over. I will live my life and be happy with Lucy. We will cherish each other and live happily ever after. I made that promise in my heart.